Wembley. Could any other single word sum up so well the ambition of every boy that ever kicked a football? See Billy Wright down there, number 6. Wembley was his ambition too, and he achieved it when he was little more than a lad. Captain of England at 23, and Billy Wright loves football. Some sportsmen reach the top while they're still young, others never do. But the real point of any sport is that everyone who plays it should enjoy it. The 1952 Olympics, remember this young lady? Yes, Jeanette Altwain. She was 22 and she was the only British athlete to win a gold medal in the Winter Games. She's a star. But as she'd tell you, if the stars highlight sport, the enthusiasts, millions of them in every town and village in the country, good performers and not so good, so long as they're keen, they keep Britain's sport alive. Another 22-year-old is Gordon Pirie. Recently, he's been breaking records all over Europe. Just look at his perfect rhythm. What a stride, as he pegs along behind the American Wes Santee in their White City battle for the Emsley Trophy. That's a very fair finishing speed to build up in your spare time from the week's work behind the counter of a bank in Croydon. On the track or on the courts, youth is always making its bid. Here's Billy Knight, only 17 years old, but already able to give a very good game of tennis even to the great Drobny. Pat Smythe, in her middle 20s, rides because she loves it, and she's one of our brightest hopes for Olympic honours in 1956. Fred Trueman is only 22, but he took 5 Australian wickets in one innings of that final test that won the Ashes. Young Peter May is maturing as a test batsman at 24. Now here's a storybook run for you. Ted Woodward, see him? Number 5. He scores tries like this on his Saturday afternoons off. An English international who trains in the evening after earning his living at Layne End in Buckinghamshire. You can never be sure these days when or where you're rubbing shoulders with a big name in the sporting world. The man in the factory, that girl in the machine shop, may play their games for fun, but in front of cheering thousands on Saturday afternoons. Their day's work ended, they're off to their sports club or sports ground to train, because that's fun too. Sheila Lowell has a full-time job in an office and she runs her home. Yet somehow she found time to break the world's high jump record. Because like all the really great performers, she's an enthusiast, she finds time to pass on her skill to the youngsters. At Bisham Abbey in Buckinghamshire, nearly all sporting tastes are covered. Here are people on holiday courses organised by the Central Council of Physical Recreation, polishing up their technique under the guidance of experts and champions. And if it sounds too much like hard work, you just ask anyone who's been on one of these courses. They love every minute of it. And afterwards they can pass on what they've learnt to their own clubs at home. Recognise the instructor? Dan Maskell, probably the greatest of all professional tennis coaches, and the man behind our Davis Cup team. Here, teaching youngsters not only how to play tennis, but how to understand it, and therefore, how to enjoy it more. One of the attractions of going to Bisham is that this lovely old abbey lies on the banks of the Thames, and most people on the courses like to try their hand at sailing or canoeing. Here are some beginners learning what they must do if the worst happens. In most districts, there are organisations who look after the general run of spare time amusements. Nowadays, almost everyone has a chance to take part in any form of games. But in some parts of the Highlands, only sports like pony tracking are possible. Lilleshall Hall is another Central Council sports centre, and there, this week, cricket's the #1 attraction for the youngsters. The back defensive stroke, and who better to teach it than that master of footwork, George Headley, the first great West Indian Test batsman. Or perhaps you'd like Bill Merritt to teach you to make a cricket ball swing. Yes, lad, first 2 fingers, one each side of the seam. About 4,500 people come here each year. Most of them are learning to be coaches. Some of them get instruction from Jack Carrington, who coached world table tennis champion Johnny Leach. And here Johnny's come back to give his old teacher a game, and the spectators a treat. In this country today, about 1 million people play football. Many of them haven't been able to get really first-class training and direction. So as part of their work to raise the standard, the Football Association run coaching courses at Lilleshall. Billy Wright teaches the lads how to teach, how to pass on the experts' tips to their young players back at home. Examinations are held at the end of the course so that only first-class teachers are passed out. When they get back to their local clubs to put all they've learned into practice, they find a ready audience, for although there's a social side to the club's activities, it's usually sport that brings them together. We're not all champions, we can't all be champions. But the Central Council of Physical Recreation, the Football Association, the MCC, and all the other bodies and the clubs don't help to teach us because they think we shall become champions. They know, and so does every real player, that any game is only worthwhile when it's enjoyed, that it can only be enjoyed to the full when it's understood to the full. And then it's fun. And that's the acid test of any sport, not how many honours it wins, but how much enjoyment it gives and to how many people. Any sport with that ideal can't help breeding champions. And behind the champions, making us the sort of people we'd like to be.